And we are to find out one solution, only one solution for all the problems of the world. It is agreed by everybody that every individual has got problem, every nation has got problem, and all these result in the world problem. Individual has a problem of lack of opportunity, lack of equality among others, and the nations are very aggressive and they want to extend their borders of their land space and they create problem. You are expecting war anytime, anywhere on the globe. And basic problem for all these things perhaps is, the main problem is poverty. The world is plenty with all treasure, but unfortunately we live in poverty. There is abundance against abstinence. And poverty is manifold, as everybody knows. There is economic poverty, there is bodily poverty, there is mental poverty, there is societal poverty, cultural poverty, political poverty, and last but not the least, spiritual poverty. We divide the world as haves and have-nots, developed, underdeveloped, and undeveloped. Rich and poor are among the classes of men in the world. Not satisfied with dividing it as rich and poor, we created a middle class also. And not even satisfied with that middle class, we divided it into lower and higher again. Lower middle class, higher middle class. Higher middle class who want to pretend as rich, lower middle class who want to present themselves as poor. All these divisions are very comfortably enjoyed by everybody, though they are not factual. The division anywhere and everywhere is for purposes of administrative convenience and understanding of the situation. It is only an illusion and it's not real. And then coming to the bodily problems, we have problems of health and hygiene, premature death, infant death, and similar things. Mentally, we have too many inconveniences in thoughts, feelings, and suffer very great because of the likes and dislikes of the mind. Society problems are, we are not happy with our neighbors, we are unhappy with the atmosphere, we have class struggle everywhere, and similar things like that. We are not able to live harmoniously with the society because of the divisions of language and religion. And coming to the political problems, we see the ideological changes, points of view becoming differences virtually, and then culturally there is a problem everywhere. This cultural problem we thought will go away with the education. It is considered that education will bring culture, but unfortunately educated men are not truly cultured every time. We have very many intellectuals, parliamentarians and legislators who are well educated, but they are culturally a big nil. We see that every day in the Lok Sabhas and Rajya Sabhas of the states. Education has not brought the culture because it is not holistic. And coming back to the original list I have given, there is spiritual poverty, not being able to be harmonious and happy with everybody. We lived in wrong notions on all these fields, and it is necessary for us to take a historical perspective of the various problems. It is not a luxury, but an absolute necessity. Learning lessons from the past is very necessary, but that is what we do not do. As I said, taking a historical perspective of all these problems is very necessary, and it's not a luxury. It is an absolute necessity. We see corruption and nepotism everywhere, and that is blocking the way of the eligible. This affects all the problems and mentioned above. We constantly think that all these problems are divine made or nature made, created by the nature or God, whatever you may call. But we never consider that they are purely human made. You have a mind, every person has got a mind, and it creates problems of comparison, competition, and no contentment at all, whatever the achievement is. It is the comparison and competition that is driving men run after problem, solution after solution. It is therefore necessary that transmission of right knowledge is essential. Capacity to distinguish among the right and wrong is to be evoked. We call that in India Viveka. That Viveka has to develop in everybody, and we must try to distinguish what is right and what is wrong and act according to the right alone. In other words, original thinking capacity is to be induced among all people. The whole purpose of the Theosophical Society is to make man an original thinker, among other things. Man has to think for himself and decide things from himself, from an understanding of the right and wrong, which we have discussed earlier. And it is only the original thinking and action thereon that will help us to look at the problems systematically and categorically and remove them once for all. We see nature provides opportunities for us. It never pressurizes anybody. It gives a lot of choice, and the men and women of the world have got the choice to decide what is right and what is exactly not right for them. Nature needs our aid. It cannot function on its own. Our right choice alone brings progress. The only solution to the problems, all the problems we mentioned above, is theosophical approach to contemporary times, abbreviated as TACT, T-A-C-T, which stands for Theosophical Approach to Contemporary Times. What is this theosophical approach? And how does it solve the problems? That is the basic question we have to deal with now. Theosophical Society as such has got three great objects, declared objects before it. It talks about forming a nucleus of universal brotherhood of humanity. What is this brotherhood? Is it possible at all? When the society was started in 1875, the Royal Lodge has laughed at this object, how can it be? How can everybody be brothers? Everybody is divided by space and time and circumstances of living. How can you establish universal brotherhood at all? But in later times, because of the wonderful work done by Theosophical Society and other organizations like-minded, and the religious philosophical development and advancement in the culture and all that, brotherhood of humanity has come to be accepted today by everybody, universally accepted. They say everybody talks about Vasudhaika Kudumbakam. Whole world is one family, one globe, one planet. All these ideas are scientifically examined and proved and presented before us. But the Theosophical Society, to start with, wants to create a nucleus among men and women of the world who really live for universal brotherhood of humanity. This brotherhood is a law in nature. The work of the society is to collect and diffuse a knowledge about the laws of nature and see that people really understand them and act according to them. As we said, nature requires our aid. We can't work against the nature. If we work against the nature, we will be punished. If we aid the nature, if we assist it, then it will help us for achieving the progress and similar achievements. Laws of nature, explained in many terms, they are not presuppositions or guesses by the human brain. They are eternal truths. Love, charity, and hope explain the canons of brotherhood and their absolute use. But terms are understood in their own bad way. When I was talking about brotherhood at a lodge among the people, somebody stood up and said, "Sir, you are saying that we should all be brothers." I don't agree with that. He said, brothers go to civil courts and criminal courts in the matter of division of their property. You are telling people to live like brothers. Do you want them to live like that? It's a very funny question, but it is very real. People on the property and acquisition of generational things among them go to the civil courts and criminal courts and create murders among themselves within the family. That is not the brotherhood we are talking about. We are talking about brotherhood as a basic principle of the human friendship. All humanity, wherever it is, whatever be the country, language, race, and caste they belong to, have the common aspiration. They come from the same spirit. Of course, philosophically speaking, you may not immediately accept it, but philosophically and metaphysically, all the universes and men and women, other living beings of the world, have come from the same source. So considering that point and physically seeing that man and woman, wherever they are in the world, are having the same aspiration, same likes and dislikes, and same raga and dvesha, make them brotherly. So, forming a nucleus of universal brotherhood of humanity is the basic structure of the Theosophical Society as well as the Theosophical philosophy. Now, as you said, the brotherhood concept is accepted verbally by everybody, but pragmatically and practically it's not advocated by all, as we explained in the earlier situation. It is accepted as a principle, but as an activity, it is forgotten because of the evil designs or wrong passions among the men and women of the world. Intellectual minds need to be drawn towards the intuition, thus awakening the truth within them. That is the highest goal of any philosophical organization, not only the Theosophical Society, but any organization of philosophy or spiritual understanding in the world will agree that intellectual minds must be drawn towards intuition, and they must be awakened to the truth, which is the inherent quality of everybody. Look at the problems and understand them intelligently. Intelligence is to be evoked in every mind. The point is, the mind is the one which analyzes everything, which destroys or destructs everything. But one should not try to depend too much on the mind. It is only for analysis that you have to depend on the mind. But for synthesis, you must go to the other principle of the man, which is buddhi, that has to be worked out in synthesizing the whole thing. In other words, one must not use the lower mind. Of course, for everything we want to divide. Mind is divided into a lower mind and a higher mind many times. In every philosophical system, that is the arrangement made. Lower mind is full of passions, desires, and lower aspirations, whereas the higher mind tends towards intelligence or viveka or buddhi, as we already explained. So man has to live more on buddhi than on the mind. Again, taking the mind, you can't consider that it is useless. You can't be mindless. If you are mindless, you become a lunatic or a madman. No, the mind, what we mean is the higher mind, or the mind that is prone towards the development, viveka, buddhi, or intelligence, whatever it is. So that mind, higher mind, and the buddhi, and the atma that is supposed to be overruling the mind and buddhi becomes the full man. Real man, as we know, is not the physical body. In other words, physical body is not one. It is a compendium of 7 bodies inside, like the circulatory system, bone system, canals, and nervous system, and all these things. All these systems, 7 in number, make the physical body. So also we have some other bodies. Mind is also said to be one body. Buddhi is allowed to be another body. In the Hindu system of thought, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Buddhimaya Kosha, and Vijnanamaya Kosha. Such divisions are made. Every system of philosophy makes its own division and all that. Broadly speaking, it will be the Sthula Sarira, dense physical body, and the Sukshma Sarira are subtler bodies over and above the physical body. So it is possible for man to think with the mind, with the higher mind or buddhi. In other words, looking within. capacity to research improves. Common sense again becomes the divine sense, and this results in the spiritual regeneration of humanity, which is the goal. Spiritual regeneration of humanity is what is intended to be done by a philosopher or a theosophist, whatever be the other qualities of the gentleman is. Etc. is to be carried out. And you make a link with the buddhi every time. Buddhi again, we must think of the higher mind, which is explained as noble thoughts. And one must be able to think nobly and act locally. You must make a link with the buddhi or divinity, if you prefer that word, and try to live all the time with that link. That link is the dharma or righteousness or any such name, whatever. After all, what's dharma? Dharma means binding everybody together. All the manifestation, as we said earlier, is one planet or one unit, one globe, one family. You can have as many descriptions as you like, but the point is the unity. So unless that unity of thought, feeling and action is embodied in human person, the problems cannot be solved. Problems can be enumerated any number of times, any number of ideas, thoughts and all that, as we did in the beginning. But the problem is, only solution for that is theosophical approach to the contemporary times. You have to understand the dharma or intelligence or philosophy and apply it to the contemporary times. How do we see the world? Why do we see people, some people bad, some people good, some people wise, some people not wise, some people very intelligent, some people average intelligent and all that. All these are qualities which are explained in the terms of Prakriti or some thing like that, as we say. Differences are there, but are we able to look to differences without the differentiation at all? You have to improve the average man, and you have to do something to better the quality of the way of life of these people. Theosophy, as already mentioned, is the need of the hour, and it is translated as divine wisdom in English and Brahma Vidya in India. It is the knowledge about the creation, a creation before and creation after. In other words, the whole evolution or moving forward of the worlds is explained in the THEOSOPHY concepts. They say, what are the constituents of the body, of the human person, and what are the principles that enroll them, rule them, and how do you link these qualities or principles to the body? How do you culture them and all that? All this is very scientifically, philosophically, logically, and radically explained in terms of the theosophical literature. So one has only to apply the canons of theosophy, the tenets of theosophy, the solutions to the solutions of the humanity around. The whole point is when, when thinking aloud, we agree with all these things. But when action, it becomes forgotten temporarily. In India, there is a word, Trikarana Suddhi, by mind, by action, and by thought. One must be one. There cannot be any dichotomy between mind, thought, and action. And if one is very sure of that, that will be the first step towards a spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding is necessary, but you can't go direct to the spirit at the beginning. You have to start with your mind, develop that mind, culture that mind, and then become mindless at one stage. In other words, making the awakening and buddhi or viveka dawn into the mind and work on that. That is the whole principle we have to understand and go ahead. The various laws of nature are explained in the philosophy. It explains what is duty. Duty may perhaps be the other term, English term for dharma. Duty is what is due to humanity. How do you deal with the humanity? How do you deal with your friend, with your neighbor, with the poor man, and with the moderate man, and all that? All these things are explained in very logical and systematic terms. And one has to try to see all these things very really, and there has to be an examination within oneself. Honest self-examination is very necessary. When we talk about the examination of the self, we go on giving pass marks to ourselves, even if we know intrinsically that they are not good. But what is needed is honest self-examination. You review your conduct, your thoughts, and your feelings as if you are reviewing somebody else. Is it possible for everybody to do that? One has to cultivate that. Unless that is done, a living will not be honest. Theosophy, with all these subjects and doctrines and theories and propositions, very clearly is a way of life. It is the way we live that we read. Our actions alone result in our career. There is action and there is reaction. Reaction is also an action, creating its own repercussions and all that. It may be a dynamic law that every act creates its own reaction. It is also a law in the speculative philosophy, which is named as karma and reincarnate. All the laws of dynamics given by science are replica of the eternal truths. Eternal truths say that there is an absolute, and the whole manifestation, call it the world, the universe, man, living being, or this or that, is a product of that principle, And that principle has got a quality of coming down as universes and bringing culture, civilization, and races, languages, and all these things. These are purposes of understanding and improving ourselves, but they are not to divide us. But unfortunately, we have divided ourselves, fragmented ourselves, segregated ourselves, and created problems for ourselves. Unless we look to the other man as our own man, our own brother, we cannot live happily with him. He may belong to other religion, other language, or other race, or other sex, or other caste. But the basic principle within him is the same. And it is that principle to which you are adding your own principle and making friendship or companionship. Friendliness is the human quality. Many people think selfishness is the human quality. Selfishness is not the human quality at all. It is the Maitri and Karuna, friendliness, companionship, and compassion that are the human qualities. Human quality is again another contentment, santruptaha. Maitri, Karuna, santrupti. These are the human qualities. So one must try to live in the body of those qualities within him. In other words, he has to fill his mind and heart with all those qualities, and then only he can find the solution for the world problems, whatever they are. Now, man is a mortal. Is he only a mortal? He is not. He is immortal. Philosophy, and particularly the theosophical philosophy, tries to prove that point scientifically and radically. Man is immortal. Of course, he has got a mortal parts within him. It is his desire to make those mortal parts also immortal. One may say there is immorality in the world. Immorality is there because of the divisions we have made, fragmentations and substantial differences we have created. There is immorality. But add a T to that word immorality, it becomes immortality. You see the point here. Immorality is there, no doubt. But add theosophy to that by the word T, it becomes immortality. Amrutatva. So that is the way of creating friendliness, harmony in the atmosphere and in the world, and all become very happy if all these canons are brought into currency. In other words, we have a lot of common sense. But common sense cannot be limited to the human kingdom only. That common sense has to travel up to the divine kingdom, and the common sense has to become divine sense, or divya jnana, or theosophy, or divine wisdom, however we may spell it or pronounce it. So the common sense is there with us, everybody. Let him think with that common sense and upgrade it gradually through psychology, mentality, ethics, and duty mindfulness into divinity. Then that becomes the divine sense with him. And let him live in that divine sense all the time. Seeing everything as equal, everything is to be encouraged, understood at its own level and encouraged. Nothing is to be intolerated. You tolerate everything. If you find something is wrong with the other man, talk to him closely and try to bring him out to see the right for himself. The point is, there will be pages and pages of writing on moral living and all that. One can go on listening of that for hours and hours, years and years. But that quality of ethics or morality has to come up from within each one of us. It cannot be projected or injected by somebody else outside. It must come from within. That is what we should understand. Any virtue has to be injected from within. It has to be projected, that injected goodness or virtue, and acted upon in the world. That is the only thing that we have to do. And theosophical approach to contemporary times. What is the history? We said a historical perspective is necessary. Historical perspective is necessary, we said in the beginning. What is history? History is literally his story. Who is that he? It is the supreme power. It is the divinity. It is his story that we are writing here. So we must think how he designs to be written by us, how he designs the world to appear. That is what we have to contemplate when we are feeling, thinking and acting. And that is the only way that will bring harmony among all of us. So, considering all the points, considering the past or the unmanifest and the manifest world, and grooves and chains and rounds and races within the evolution, as we know, in terms of history and all that, we see that there is oneness among all these things, and one is produced derivating from the earlier one, and that is why nothing is to be kept aside or sidelined or abridged, but we are a completion of the whole of manifestation. There is a term Aham Brahmasmi in India. Everybody talks about it. But how does he become Brahma? That is the Aham Brahmasmi. I am that higher self. That is the meaning of the term. How do you become that? With all your insensitivity, selfishness, self-centeredness, can you become that? You have to discard all those vices or practices like anger, irritation, worry, anxiety and all that, and become fresh in your mind. And it is only a fresh mind that can invoke wisdom into it, or buddhi into it, intelligence into it. So the whole purpose of the living is, we said theosophy is a way of life. Whole purpose of living is to live intelligently at the level of the buddhi, or at the level of the divinity or atma, whatever we may call. So that is the whole thing, and that can be done only by proper understanding. Proper understanding can come only by study and reflection. One has to study a lot to know what is right and what is wrong. Then the effort to cultivate only to the right and drop what is wrong becomes necessary. So unless you know what is right, you can't find out. And you can also say, I will act only when I become totally perfect. No, that's not necessary. To the extent of understanding you have with you, you cultivate that virtue and try to propagate it among the contacts you have. The truths you have learned by study have to be reflected by us, and they have to be popularized to the extent we can do. Sravana and Manana Nidhichasana is the term used in India. Listening to what is necessary. Listening again implies reflection upon it. Touching, examining whether that point comes near to your thought. It rings true to you in a very selfless way, and then acting upon it all the time. Sravana, Manana, and Nidhichasa are the three steps of will, wisdom, and activity. You may have different terminology in different systems, but the basic point is the same. That is what we have to basically understand. Theosophy it is the divine wisdom. It is that which moves one man up the ladder of life and makes him really a perfect gentleman. A perfect gentleman he becomes only when he is an MBA, mind, buddhi, and atma. And to work on that is what is needed in the present time. So we have to, each one of us will have to devise a way of finding this for ourselves and then trying to propagate it. And as I said in the beginning, theosophy has to come to the doorstep of everybody. Perhaps this digitization and talking through this media may be a way of that. You may give a book, you may give a lecture, but this talking and making everybody listen to that. Of course, what is oneself to them, so that theosophical approach to contact with time. Whatever be the circumstances you are facing, apply the theosophical philosophy to that and try to judge things in that level. That is what I wanted to say. Thank you.